Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our backyard. Today is March 30th. It's the end of the month, and so I typically like to do a garden tour at the end of the month, a full garden tour. And I like to start out by just panning the backyard. Excellent. My name is Crystal, and I garden in Zone 9B south of Houston, Texas, along the Texas Gulf Coast. And we have just had 3 days of quite a bit of rain. And so haven't been able to get out and do, for the last 3 days anyway, much in the garden. So I still have a few things to tend to for spring cleanup. But I want to go ahead and show you the parts of the garden already. And I'm going to come over here to what we call our tree bed. That's where I'm going to start first. The salvia are, golly, taller than me. The bloom spikes are taller than me now, and I'm 5'5". And so it's amazing, the growth this spring. I love the blooms. I've got bees just humming around these. But as I get in a little bit closer, this one, oh, I got a bee coming in, a honeybee. This purple is Amistad. And the pink is a Monty. And all the bees are just really going at this. I love the early spring because this is probably the most gorgeous blooms. Salvia blooms for me all year long until it freezes. And I just love these two. These two types get really tall. They're cousins to each other, and I just love the amount of blooms. I love the color of blooms, and they attract so many different pollinators. They're a Garanitica type salvia, and I just love these two. As I come over to the side over here, I've got Salvia leucantha, or Mexican bush sage, that is just starting to come up. I've got a Kufia here. And this Kufia survived our winter and our snow and our freeze, but it was covered. So this whole bed was covered. And as you can see, it is doing very, very well. Love this bed. I am going to cut back the mounding lantana because it also lived. But I need to cut that back because I want it. It's starting to grow, and the growth is starting to come down from also the underneath, and it's a little bit unruly. So I'm going to be cutting back, hopefully soonish, the lantana here. And then I've got some plantings that I still need to do. These are just staged here, and I'll be doing those plantings this coming week. So as I pivot from what I call our tree bed, because we used to have a maple tree here that we had to cut down because of disease, I want to now focus on the trellis bed. And the trellis bed is coming back beautifully. My passion vine, this is called Incense. This is coming back gorgeously. I've got it in a large container. I also have it in the ground. And we protected this bed by mulching it up pretty high around the bases and the crowns of the plant during the freeze. And things have done really well in here. I need to come through and cut the Flamacanthus, which is this bush. It is a Texas native. It blooms beautifully. And it's really hardy, but it gets a little bit unruly, and so I'm going to be coming through and cutting that back. But you can see here the Cabrera daisies are just starting to bloom. Very pretty. And last season, I had planted these super beanas. These are an amethyst color super beana, and I planted 3, and only this one survived our freeze, but it is blooming gorgeously down here. I love how that bloom looks. And then on the end, I have a hot lips. I was going to get rid of the hot lips salvia, and I decided to trim it up and keep it. I hope that's not a regret. And then, so I've got my passion vine coming back all throughout the bed, and I'm just ecstatic because it's way farther along. It didn't get as stunted this freeze as last freeze. So I'm really happy to see this. And then I have in my container, I have a native salvia. This is called not salvia, passion vine. This is called a cotton leaf. And I'm really happy to see that this one is coming back. Okay, so in the back here, I've got some lilies that every year come up every spring. And then I've not taken out my cannas. And so I didn't like them last year, but they're growing so beautifully, so I'm not sure. They're kind of low priority trying to remove them back along the fence here. So we'll see if I can get that done. So let me pan this way. Oh, I've got my hummingbirds coming in. We've had quite a few this week, hummingbirds, and they've been escorting each other out. So they definitely defend their territories. So I told you in prior videos that I did need to replace my porterweed, and I did, and planted it, and it's doing well. Love the red porterweed. And as I come this way, this is what I call my 4x4 bed. It was originally created just for this bush. This, golly, this is the 5th year for this bush, and it finally looks like a bush. This is a blue chiffon, Rose of Sharon, and I am finally happy after 5 years. It does have substantial growth. It took 5 years for it to get to this point. Got a little crowded last year because I had some volunteer plants in here, some volunteer porterweed, but these are wonderful natives. And let me get closer here. I'm going to need to divide this. Should have divided it earlier and I didn't. This is a native phlox. This is called John Fanick phlox, and it is a gorgeous paniculata type phlox for the southern gardens, and it takes our heat just like a champ. So I'm really excited to see all of this phlox. I just should have separated it, but it's been a crazy spring. And as I look towards my south bed, I have my purple porterweed. I have a planting I need to do. My back beds, I still need to soil condition and put some soil in, and I need to work in this area, but at least I've cut it back. And as I look up and see the gorgeous, I love hanging baskets, and I love the interest that they provide. And I just think the whiteout superbena right now is just really, really pretty. So let me get a little closer this way. I did a video, actually it was the last one, where it was hummingbird favorites in the spring, and this is the very beautiful vine called the coral honeysuckle, or the Lonicera sempervirens, and it just is a beautiful bloomer in the spring and has so many different types of pollinators on it. Of note, there's a couple of things of note here that are coming back. So my butterfly bush made it, but this I am so pleased with. Oh my goodness. This is my giant milkweed, and it of course froze during the freeze. We couldn't protect it, but it is returning beautifully. And we've already had monarch butterflies starting to come through, and golly, we've had 6 caterpillars already. So it's been beautiful. I'm really excited. I've got other plants that are returning here, mainly salvias, some Greg's mist flower. I've got I think that is oh golly, that's a lantana. But the one thing I wanted to point out was back here. So let me get a little closer. So the last couple of years I had a Mexican flame vine, and a piece broke off, and I decided to root that piece, which I did, and it survived. And so I decided to plant that back here next to the bricks, which is warmer in the winter. I didn't protect this at all, and look at this Mexican flame vine. It loves its life. Goodness gracious. So I'm really happy to see what it's doing here. It is amongst my fire bush. My fire bush is starting to come back. And also my my other vine, which is, I think it's called the tropical honeysuckle, but I need to check that out. But this is also a standard. It just grows almost like a weed, and I have to control it. Its canes, it does spread out its canes, and I only want it in the back here. So I did want to point this out because I'm so happy with what this Mexican flame vine is doing. So from my south corner vantage point, as I look out to my tree bed and also my central bed, I am going to go over to the central bed now. And I just did a video on this, which I'll put at the top of the screen, on planting this up. And I am so pleased with how it's looking because the plants have only been in, golly, for a little over a week, and they're already starting to grow. But let me show you over here, because we soak our cardinal climber seeds for 24 hours and they sprout within 2 to 3 days. And I am so pleased because all of our cardinal climbers have sprouted. Ugh, I have issues with squirrels digging. Ugh, they are a pain. But this bed has just been growing beautifully, and because we got that wonderful rain, that just really also not only rejuvenated, well, just invigorated plants, but it has got the weeds invigorated too. So I'm at the front of the bed, and I'm not going to go through all of the plants because I did in the prior video, but I do want to point out a new addition, and that is the mandevilla. So let me get closer over here. I used to have this large container here with Mexican flame vine in it, and I had that trellised. And it did not make the winter, which I didn't expect it to, but I was really disappointed because I've not had my Mexican flame vine flower well, except it will flower beautifully in the spring, and then it does once again in the fall. So I decided, since I see this bed front and center, I wanted to put in a bloom that I really liked looking at. And I do love mandevilla, and I have had mandevilla off and on for many years, and I just think that's such a pretty bloom. But Costco had this plant, which was a very large staked plant, and it was only $29.99, and I thought that's what I'm going to do. What's interesting, it was a really light pink in the store, and I thought, oh, well, I've got a mandevilla at home in a little pot, in a little container that I need to move, and this is great. I'll put them next to each other, and it's looking a little tough because it's from last year, and I saved it, so it was in the garage protected. And I thought they were going to be too like a hot pink type color and then the really soft pink. And I think they're going to be closer in color to each other. But I just love Mandevilla. They're not a great pollinator plant, and I don't have many plants that aren't good pollinator plants. But I see this, and I just wanted this tropical in the garden because of what it looks like. I do need to stake this up. I haven't done that yet, but I just got those planted. So, like I mentioned, back over here, let me show you back here. My Asiatic lilies come back each year and multiply. I just love these plants. And then I planted cannas over here, and these were supposed to be beautiful blooms. And I really like the foliage when it doesn't get eaten, but I don't like the blooms. The blooms are not showy at all. So ignore the weeds. They're going to get taken care of. I might have to deal with these guys next year. I guess we'll see. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to what I call my shade garden. So on the end of the shade garden, I have my shrimp plants that did die to the soil level in the pots, but they're coming back beautifully. And I was really happy because I was able to get my coleus in the ground. Let me go to the front. So I don't have my containers here yet planted. And I'm going to be switching things in and out. But I was able to get part of, anyway, this shade bed planted. And this year I decided to go with similar coleus. A couple of them are new. I've got a couple new ones from Main Street series. This one is an interesting, very pretty color. It's pretty vibrant. Doesn't pick up as much on camera, but I've got most of these planted. And in this garden bed, I really like the contrasting colors. So last year I had the idea of planting a really beautiful coleus in that planter, hoping that it would be a showy addition, and it wasn't. It was very green and it just blended in with everything else. And that was Albrito from Proven Winners, and I was really, really disappointed. So I decided to go with some type of showy or bright flowers that I can see. But in this garden bed, I really like contrasting colors because I see it from my patio, and I like the burgundies, I like the chartreuse color, and this year I kind of wanted to mix it up a little bit just to see what that looks like when I bring when my eye focuses on it. So I did have patches or little drifts, if you will, of the different colors, so we'll see what that looks like. In the back, I've got some Turk's cap that I planted from seed. I've got the wonderful Salvia madrensis. Look at that patch. This is a fall bloomer. Oh, it's looking so gorgeous right now. And then over here, I have my very large patch of white veined Dutchman's pipevine. And it is a host plant to the beautiful pipevine swallowtail butterfly, which is a black and blue butterfly. Look at this. It is just loving its spring. We did protect this. We put blankets over it, and it never missed a beat during our freeze and our snow. So now I am just looking forward to seeing the pipevine swallowtail butterflies in the yard. All right, so as I turn and look at what we call our north bed, got a lot of work left to do in the planter, these raised areas next to the fence. But in the bed itself, I'm really pleased with what this is doing. So let me start over here. So on the end here, I have a senna plant or a cassia, and this is a host plant to the sulfur butterflies. I will be replacing this plant. I'm going to put a red porterweed in here. I had a lilac colored one last year. And then in this container, I had a very large giant milkweed. Couldn't protect it, but look at that. It's starting to return from the roots. So I'm very happy to see that. And so the new plantings are on this end. I've got some rue. I've got annual salvias, red and purple. I've got a volunteer, Henry Dulberg. There's Henry Dulberg, and of course you can see here I've got the gorgeous Mystic Spires. Let me go to the side here. So last summer when I had a mishap with my drip irrigation, I lost all of my fennel plants. And fennel is a staple in this north garden bed because it is a host plant to the eastern black swallowtail butterfly, and I absolutely love having it because I love having those plants in the garden. And so I planted these last fall, and I'm so happy that I did because it gave them such a beautiful head start. They are just, well, they're growing really, really well. And then I replanted the Powwow Wild Berry Coneflowers because mine were not doing very well, and I just thought, you know what, I want these to be blooming and looking good in this garden bed. So let me go over to the side here. So most of my plants during this freeze did die back to the ground, the container soil level, but they are returning, so I'm very happy for that. And I have a blue butterfly clerodendron that was beautiful and large and gorgeous, but look at that, it's coming back very healthily. A giant milkweed, and then this is a false nettle. This is the host plant to a red admiral butterfly. I'm really happy to see that coming back. And I do have a couple of plants that we pull out every year, so we don't have an issue with with this plant. This is a milkweed plant, and we had look at all these caterpillars that are here. Oh my goodness, we had a lot. We had a couple of butterflies come through. They're starting to migrate, and what's interesting is they are laying their eggs, and boy, look at that. Their eggs are making caterpillars, and the caterpillars right now aren't having a lot of issue with wasps yet. Got one down there. So I don't have a lot of milkweed in the yard because most of it died back. This is one of my native milkweeds. I can see a caterpillar down there, but we'll see. It looks like I might have enough foliage here for them. I guess we'll see. So that was I still have soil conditioner to put in this bed, but I'm really happy with what this has done. Oh, I've got one more thing to show you. This is a rockin' fuchsia salvia, and I purchased 2 years ago. I purchased 3 of them, and they did not survive, or what I didn't think survived, our summer of 23 when we had 100-degree temperatures day after day after day in the summer, and not much rain. And I never had this plant last year, but up from the ground, I guess it took that long to recover. I'm just shocked. Look at that particular plant. It is looking gorgeously and doing so well, but it is crowded. So I planted the rue plant last fall. There was nothing in the area. This rockin' fuchsia has come up, and this is a native swamp milkweed. And look at that. There is a caterpillar in there. I'm just so stunned. So of course I wouldn't have done this, but these are volunteers, right? And it's like, okay, well, they are close together. We will see what happens. So I love this spring. I love springtime. I love how the garden just bursts forth with life. I still have a lot of spring work to do, but slowly and surely I'm finishing it and getting it done. And I just thank you for joining me today as we took a peek at this very early March spring garden down here south of Houston. So I hope you all have a really wonderful day today. And I hope to see you again soon.